So when we start talking about security procedures, they really are an important type of compensating control. And when I say compensating control, it is one that mitigates the lack of or failure of other controls that you might have in place. So when it comes to procedures, let's first take a look at continuous monitoring. I'm sure you're all familiar with what this is. Here's something to think about. If your company is really using some basic security capabilities, controls are only seriously looked at after there's been some sort of event. This is extremely reactive and it's not very secure. Instead, if you can adopt a security posture, meaning that the company has thought carefully about security and puts it on the level of priority with other business critical functions. Now, when I say a security posture, what I'm referencing here is a range of controls as well as mitigation techniques that you have in place. So if you truly start utilizing continuous monitoring, then you should be continually reassessing your risks. This means maintaining an extremely high level of awareness of emerging threats. And we do this by keeping up with what's really going on in the news, as well as what vulnerabilities have been announced. And of course, any real-time collection and analysis of cybersecurity data that you've collected. Now, next we have what they refer to as control testing procedures. Now, we all know that our network infrastructures are complex systems. We have several different vendors as well as products that are in place. And combine that with operating systems and how often these items are utilized adds to the complexity of it sometimes. Now, the complexity gets even worse because we have challenges of attackers that are continuously innovating new types of attacks and techniques to try to defeat some of the things that we've put into place. So our systems require plenty of oversight and testing to ensure that it's up to snuff. And because of that, your control testing procedures need to be looked at sometimes by external expertise. And this would be someone like a white hat consultant that you would want to bring in. Another procedure that we'd want to take a look at would be the exceptions. Now, when we go through and start creating all these procedures and policies, it's never a match made in heaven, right? There's always somebody that's like, yeah, but that shouldn't apply to me because I'm special. Did I just describe your CEO? Not only that, but the control itself actually may be too expensive, or you may not have the knowledge to try to keep it up to date or to operate it. So whenever a function or an asset becomes non-compliant, there should always be a formal process of exception management to document each of the cases. Why was the exception made for this individual? Why was the exception made for this particular device? And of course, with that documentation, because you're making the exception, you need to make sure that you list the risk assessments associated to that exception. We also have evidence production. Now, making sure that you have a clean digital evidence is extremely difficult. And it can only be done successfully if you follow proper procedures. Now, in particular, the process must be documented and documented well or in depth. We need to make sure that everybody involved knows how to handle a breach, including those that may be your first responders to the breach, which hopefully will be you as an incident handler. Everybody needs to know and understand the response process and know how and who to alert without contaminating the crime scene. This is very much like CSI. You don't want somebody saying, hey, look what I found, and start showing it to everybody. And, Billy Bob says, hey, I'd like to get a copy of that because that's a really cool ransomware document. All we're going to end up doing is destroying the forensics that we need. And of course, let's not forget patching. Now, I know we're all thinking about operating systems, but we also need to be thinking about patching of applications as well as hardware devices. It just drives me crazy. People that don't update firmware on devices and or drivers. And again, make sure you get your drivers from the source. You do not get it from Billy Bob's super stash of drivers. The ability to apply patches quickly is extremely beneficial to you and your company. But I know sometimes patching procedures can affect capabilities or compatibilities as well within your organization. So you need to make sure that you have patch management laid out in step by step as far as how do we get these things approved. And do me a favor, I know all of us are really afraid of, especially when it comes to service packs from Microsoft, and it's been a long time since the service pack has blown things up. When it comes to the the critical updates by Microsoft, you need to apply those immediately. Those are 0-day patches that they're trying to plug and typically won't affect the productivity of your users. And if you're not familiar with a service pack blowing up anything, somebody want to pull out, what was it, XP Service Pack 2?